Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. You will probably recognize this car if you are a very long time viewer of the channel, because this is not mine, but I did revive this around 4 years ago. I found it and bought it for a friend of mine who wanted one of these, fixed it up. It ended up being a little bit involved because the rear axle was seized and so on. Then 2 years ago I helped MOT it again, and now it's MOT time again and I'm helping once again. I'm just finished fixing some rust. These do rust, especially in the boot area. It's fixed now, so it's just fine. But even though they rarely look rusty on the outside, it can actually rust in there. Big surprise. Anyway, there is another problem. Another problem that was actually also a problem, I think, 2 years ago. The rear axle is not having a lot of brake pressure. It's very low. It's around, I think, 15 Newton meters of braking force. If you really stamp the brake pedal, it's not enough. I seem to remember we had issues with that in the last MOT, and after adjusting and making sure that everything was fine in the drums and so on, we got it to brake enough, but just enough to pass the MOT. Now it's a problem again, and there must be something wrong with this system. Rear brake issues is very hard to test in my experience, because you can't really tell how much it's braking back there. It is the front brakes that are doing the biggest task when stopping the car. You can feel it if they are over braking, because it will be very snappy oversteery if you brake in a corner, for instance. You can also try to do it in some stones and see if you can make 11 marks with the rear wheels if you don't have ABS. But it's a bit difficult to really test. But this is feelable in this one, because on a French car with a rear axle like this, you get the downwards movement from the rear axle when heavy braking. But currently in this one, it's doing like this. That was me stopping from 80 kilometers per hour, almost locking up the brakes. And as you can see, the rear axle lifted a little bit. You would want it to stay in place or maybe go down a little bit. So let's take a look at it. So firstly, it's a very common issue to have brake pressure problems on the rear axle on French cars, in my climate at least. Because normally on most of them, you have the rear axle swinging up and down, and you have a brake propulsion valve like this, also the brake pressure. That means that if you get some passenger in the rear of your car, it will be more heavy and it will apply more brake pressure. And if those passenger leaves the car, it will go back and reduce the brake pressure, so you don't have an over braking rear axle. That is very often just corroded in place. And normally you don't drive with passenger or a lot of weight, so it will just be frozen in place. The thing is that the Rallye does not have a brake propulsion valve. It's just a fixed braking force on the rear axle. And as far as I know, it is restricted in the actual wheel cylinder on the rear brakes. Could that be faulty on this one? I think we changed them 4 years ago. Could I have put in the wrong ones? There is a chance that we put the wrong ones without the restrictor valve in there. In my brains, that would mean that it would be over braking like crazy, and it's not. It's under braking. But maybe maybe on those systems, ABS systems, the pressure is higher. I don't know. But we're just gonna have to take a look. I hope to find something obvious. Otherwise, I really don't know what to do about it. One of the really nice things about the Skill 3285, other than the fact that it's just as powerful as my air impact, is that it has a feature where it just stops spinning once it's loose, like that. Even though my finger is still pushed against the trigger, it stops spinning. That's pretty nice to avoid taking the balls out too fast and dropping stuff. I like that. The other thing I like about it is the fact that I can take off nuts like these so easily. I can remember a time where I had to use long breaker bars, and the risk involved with that is just so big. This, it's just, there we go, it's off. I cannot read those numbers, and I have tried to cross-reference the ones that I can read with the parts that you can get for this. It's not possible to find it, but what I'm pretty sure is that it's the correct one because there's two kinds. There's the one with the integrated valve, and there's the one for ABS systems, and it's slightly different shaped in the rear at least. They are both a 19 millimeters pistons, or they're about 19.1 I think. But I think it's the correct one. Could they be faulty? I don't know. Could it be clogged? If there is a restrictor valve and it's clogged for some reason, it would of course restrict it even more. It could be just a bad part. I see no other way than to just change it because the master is good. The lines are new. They are not new anymore, but they were new last time and it was an issue already back then, just not as bad as now. I cannot see what it could be other than this one. I might add that the handbrake is working really well, so it has nothing to do with the drums or anything like that. I'm gonna try to take everything off and possibly even take this apart to see the restrictor valve. You can see that I bought Brembo parts, so it's probably a Brembo caliber also. I do tend to buy the same brands when I buy a lot of stuff at the same time, just to avoid any problems with that. So it's probably Brembo, which is making the Saga even weirder because you would expect Brembo to be a decent product. And it probably is. There could be other reasons for this. There we go. So I wonder if I can take it apart. It is quite new, so I don't think it will be stock pistons or anything like that. It would of course be easier to take them out with a bit of pressure, but maybe it's not even necessary. Yeah, it came out by itself. That was pretty easy. Okay. And here we have the restrictor valve. But by the design of this, I think it would be very important to fit it the right way. If this was put on the wrong way by some stupid wannabe mechanic, I wonder who that could be. That could be explaining it. I'm just going to check the new parts, how that looks. Now that looks correct. Unless the parts in there are put in there another way. Okay, so we have the valve on this side. I don't want to mess anything up, but I can't remember how this came apart, so I'm just going to check what you guys just saw to see if the valve is fitted the same way, because there is a possibility that these were fitted wrongly. Okay, so after checking the material, it is fitted the correct way, so I could be on a goose chase now, but I just cannot see what else it could be. So I'm going to change it, and then hopefully we're just dealing with a bad propulsion valves in these. I bought another brand that I know that I think is pretty good. So hopefully that will make a difference. I did change all the brake fluid back then because I would presume that this restrictor valve setup is a bit doesn't like grit and stuff, but I don't think there should be any in there. I mean, if just a little bit of sediment gets in there, it would probably restrict flow more than it was supposed to. So I'm just going to change it on the other side also, and then we're going to bleed it and test it. Hopefully it works. There we go. The drums are back on. There are new wheel cylinders at each side. I put pressure on the brake master using my pressure bleeder. Then it is just a matter of bleeding it, making sure that all air is out. I'm seeing no air bubbles in the line, so that should be enough. I'd say that's it. I hope. So now I just need to put the wheels back on and go for a test drive and see if I can feel the rear end. What if the Rallye is just supposed to have 50 kilos of brake force on the rear? That would make me a little bit sad and also very surprised. But I really don't think so. Back again from the test drive, and would you believe it? The result is exactly the same. Driving it, it felt like it actually did go down a little bit on the rear, so I thought it might have improved, and I actually went to the MOT station to check on the brake stand. It is braking around 50 kilos or Newton meter. I can't remember what kind of current they measure that in, but it's really not a lot, and I'm puzzled about this. I hate changing parts without confirming that the part is defective before changing it. That's one thing. I can live with it if it fixes a problem, and it just annoys me if I don't find the actual cause. But it's worse to just change a part and then it makes absolutely no difference. And that's the case today. The old wheel cylinders were just fine, I guess, unless both of them are defective, but I would really doubt that. But it is just so weird because it could of course be overheated brake liners or worn out brake drums or something like that, but the handbrake is working just fine. It could of course be a clog in the brake line going to the actual brake cylinder, so the line itself is a restrictor together with the wheel cylinder. But it's exactly the same on each side. It's not braking unevenly from side to side, it's just not braking very much. And there are two lines going to the rear. They are not using the same supply line. So that would be very weird. Could it be because it's not supposed to have a restricted wheel cylinder in there? Probably not, because the other one without the restrictor is for the ABS system, and the ABS system got a brake proportion valve. So it's probably not that either. Could it be the brake master cylinder? But I'm really not that tempted to just go ahead and swap that for a new one, because I really doubt that is the problem. I have no idea. And the thing is, this was a problem 4 years and maybe even 2 years ago also, but I made it brake good enough for the MOT, and I cannot really remember if it's 80 kilos or something like that. It is not supposed to brake that much on the rear because it's very light, and you don't want to over brake on the rear axle on a light car. I cannot find any documentation of how much it's supposed to brake from factory, but that could be interesting. But I'm really puzzled, and I have to leave this car for a bit and just think. I really don't know what to do next. I think by scuffing up the pads and the brake drums, I would probably make it brake hard enough to pass the MOT, but it will only be very temporary, and it's not a fix. So there's something I'm missing, and I really wonder what that is. Anyway, it's really nice to be back at wrenching on the 106. The good thing about all this is that I have to take so many test drives, and it's very important to, when you're testing brakes, to find some very nice winding small roads, and you have to get up to speed very quickly and all that, and use all the gears and have a good time and have your arm in the window and all that. You have to do that, otherwise you're not doing it right. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.